October 17th, 2011. A pastor calls 911. His pregnant wife is unconscious in the bathtub.
I just came home and I was out running and my wife was taking a bath, and when I came home she's in the bath but she's under the water and she's not breathing.
Okay, sir, did you remove the water from the bathtub?
No, I haven't.
Okay, take the moment to do that now, okay?
He's a trained nurse, but he tells the operator he doesn't know how to perform CPR. He says she's too slippery to lift. By the time paramedics arrive, both Anna Karissa and her unborn baby girl are gone. Was this a tragic accident? Or did a man of God commit the unthinkable? This isn't just another true crime case. This is about a woman who forgave too much, a community that trusted the wrong person, and a justice system that would take over a decade, and 2 convictions to deliver answers. By the end of this video, you're going to see the digital trail Philip left behind, the hospital visit that should have saved Anna's life, and the shocking reason why a convicted killer walked free multiple times. And then you'll decide for yourself. Was this manslaughter or was it murder? Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened to Anna Karissa. And I need to warn you, this case gets darker the deeper we go. Let's start at the beginning. Not with the night Anna died, but with who she was. Because understanding Anna makes what Philip did even more unforgivable. You see, in true crime, it's easy to reduce victims to just that victims, a name, a statistic, a tragedy. But Anna Karissa Grandine was so much more than the way she died. And if we're going to understand why this case shook an entire community, why people still can't believe what happened, we need to understand who Anna was. Because the woman Philip killed, she was everything he pretended to be. Anna was born on the 10th of November 1981 in Pasay City, Philippines. She grew up in a loving family with her parents, Maria and Roman, and her sister Joanna. In 1994, when Anna was just 13 years old, her family made a decision that so many immigrant families make. They left everything they knew behind and moved to Canada, hoping for a better life, more opportunities, a safer future. And Anna? She made the most of it. She worked hard, she studied hard, and in 2006, she graduated from the University of Toronto with honors, a Bachelor of Science in Human Biology and Archaeology. She landed a job as a casualty underwriter at Berkeley, Canada. She was independent, successful, building a life for herself. But here's what everyone who knew Anna remembers most. It wasn't her success. It wasn't her education. It was her kindness. Anna had been battling a chronic liver illness for years. She was in pain, but no one ever heard her complain. Her church community described her as a true example of a saint. Always smiling, always positive. Always the first to volunteer, the first to help someone in need. And her faith, it was everything to her. She was active in multiple Baptist churches across Toronto. She volunteered with children. She inspired people just by being herself. That's how she met Philip Grandine, at church, where he was a pastor. She thought she'd found her perfect match, a man of God, just like her. Someone who shared her values, her faith, her dreams for the future. She had no idea she'd married a monster. In 2011, Anna got the news she'd been waiting for. She was pregnant. She was overjoyed. She called her baby Jelly Bean. She was 20 weeks along, halfway through her pregnancy, and in just a few days, she was scheduled to find out if she was having a boy or a girl. She never made it to that appointment. But investigators would later learn Anna was having a girl, a daughter she would never meet, a daughter who would die with her. And here's what makes this even more heartbreaking. Anna was cautious. She was careful. She did everything right during her pregnancy. Her doctor would later testify that she wouldn't even take Tylenol without asking him first. So when a powerful sedative called Ativan showed up in her system, a drug she'd never been prescribed, there was only one explanation. Someone gave it to her, and that someone was the man she trusted most. Now, you might be wondering, why would a pastor, a man of God, want to kill his pregnant wife? The answer lies in the double life Philip was living. A life Anna was just beginning to discover. A life that would cost her everything. So let's talk about Philip Grandine, the man behind the pulpit, the man everyone trusted. Because the person the community saw, that wasn't the real Philip at all. Philip Grandine was the perfect pastor. At least, that's what everyone thought. Confident, outgoing, charismatic, the kind of guy who could light up a room just by walking into it. He'd graduated from seminary with a bachelor in theological studies. He was a pastor at Ennerdale Road Baptist Church, an assistant pastor at another church. And later, he worked as a nurse manager at a retirement home. On paper, he was the ideal husband, the ideal spiritual leader. But behind closed doors, Philip was living a double life. And when Anna discovered the truth, she became a problem he needed to solve. August 2011, 2 months before Anna died, Anna discovered that Philip was having an affair with a 6-year-old woman named Elaine Florentino. And here's the thing, Elaine wasn't just some random woman. She was a parishioner at Philip's church. She was Anna's friend. They'd been meeting in secret, texting constantly, having sex in Philip's car. But that wasn't all Anna discovered. She also found out that Philip was addicted to pornography, that he was visiting escort websites, that the man she'd married, the man who stood in front of a congregation every Sunday preaching about morality and faith, was living a lie. Now, most people in Anna's position would have left, filed for divorce, walked away. But Anna? She forgave him, both of them, because that's who Anna was. She believed in second chances. She believed people could change. She believed in the power of faith to heal their marriage. Anna insisted they go to marriage counseling, and Philip agreed. Every Thursday, they met with Pastor Stephen, a friend of theirs, someone they both trusted. Philip would cry. He'd apologize. He'd promise to change. Pastor Stephen recommended that Philip resign as pastor, and Philip agreed. They installed a filter on their home computer to block pornography and escort sites, and Philip agreed to that too. From the outside, it looked like Philip was genuinely trying to save his marriage, like he was remorseful, like he wanted to be better, but it was all an act. Phone records would later show that Philip never stopped seeing Elaine. He was still meeting her in his car, still texting her constantly. On the day Anna died, they exchanged over 300 text messages. And that computer filter Anna had installed? Philip was still accessing pornography and escort sites on his phone. He was playing the role of the repentant husband perfectly. But behind Anna's back, he was planning something. Something that would leave a digital trail he never expected anyone to find. And here's a detail that wouldn't come out until the trial, a detail that would prove crucial to the prosecution's case. During one of their counseling sessions in mid-October, just days before Anna's first hospitalization, Pastor Stephen noticed something strange about Philip. He seemed groggy. He was slurring his words. He couldn't stay awake. It was like he was on something. At the time, Pastor Stephen didn't think much of it. Maybe Philip was just tired. Maybe he'd had a long shift at the nursing home. But investigators would later believe that Philip was testing something that day, testing a drug on himself to see how it would affect him, to see what dosage he'd need. Because the very next day, Anna would end up in the hospital with that same drug in her system. So Philip had motive. He wanted to be with his mistress. He wanted to live his life without the burden of a wife and child. And as a nurse manager at a retirement home, he had access to medications, access to drugs that could incapacitate someone, drugs that could kill. But did he actually do it? Did Philip Grandine drug his wife? Well, 3 days before Anna died, something happened that would answer that question. Something that would haunt investigators. Something that would prove Anna suspected what her husband was capable of. Let me tell you about the hospital visit. October 14th, 2011. 3 days before Anna died. This is the moment that changes everything. This is the moment that proves Anna suspected something was wrong. And this is the moment that would give investigators the evidence they needed to charge Philip with murder. Because what happened at that hospital? It wasn't just a medical emergency. It was a warning. A warning that no one understood until it was too late. That morning, Philip made Anna a banana smoothie. Just a normal breakfast. Nothing unusual. Anna drank it, and within an hour, she was violently ill. Severe dizziness. Vomiting 11, 12 times until there was nothing left in her stomach. Disorientation. Her muscles weren't working right. She couldn't control her body. Philip rushed her to St. Michael's Hospital. Anna's mother and sister met them there. And Anna was terrified. She was 20 weeks pregnant. She was worried something was wrong with her baby. She kept asking the doctors, "Is my baby okay? Is something wrong with my baby?" The doctors ran tests, blood work, toxicology. They were trying to figure out what could cause symptoms like this in a pregnant woman who, by all accounts, was healthy. And then the results came back. Ativan, also known as Lorazepam, a powerful sedative. It was in Anna's system. Now, here's the thing. Anna had never been prescribed Ativan. Her doctor would later testify that he'd never given her sleeping pills or sedatives of any kind. And Anna was extremely cautious during her pregnancy. She wouldn't even take Tylenol without asking her doctor first. So how did Ativan get into her system? Anna didn't know, but she suspected something. Because while she was lying in that hospital bed, confused and scared, she turned to Philip and asked him a question that would haunt investigators. A question that would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in this case. She looked at her husband and said, "Philip, did you give me a pill?" Think about that for a second. Why would a wife ask her husband if he drugged her? What would make her suspect that? According to Anna's family, who were there in the room, Philip stopped. He looked caught off guard, like he didn't expect that question. And then he simply said, "No." But Anna's mother and sister saw something at that moment. They saw hesitation. They saw guilt. And when Anna died 3 days later, they immediately told police about this hospital visit, before anyone even knew she'd been drugged. They just knew something was wrong. Now you might be wondering, if Anna suspected Philip drugged her, why did she go home with him? Why didn't she leave? And I get it. From the outside, it seems obvious, right? Your husband might have poisoned you. Get out. Call the police. Protect yourself. But here's what you have to understand about Anna. She was a woman of deep faith. She believed in forgiveness. She believed in second chances. She'd already forgiven Philip once for his affair. And she was pregnant. She wanted her baby to have a complete family. She wanted to believe that Philip was capable of change. So she went home. She trusted him. And 3 days later, she was dead. But here's what makes this even more chilling. Investigators would later believe that the hospital visit on October 14th wasn't the first time Philip drugged Anna. It was just the first time it sent her to the hospital. Remember Pastor Stephen noticing Philip seemed groggy and out of it during their counseling session? That was the day before Anna's hospitalization. Investigators think Philip was testing the drug on himself, figuring out the dosage, seeing how it would affect someone. Then he tested it on Anna, the hospital visit on October 14th. And on October 17th, he used what he learned. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't an accident. This was calculated, planned, premeditated. So let's talk about that night. October 17th, 2011. The night Anna Karissa Grandine died. October 17th, 2011, 11:45 p.m. This is the moment everything comes to a head. This is the moment that would expose Philip's lies, and this is the moment that would leave investigators with one burning question. Why didn't a trained nurse save his wife? Philip calls 911, and from the very first words out of his mouth, something doesn't add up.
I just came home, and I was out running, and my wife was taking a bath, and when I came home, she's in the bath, but she's under the water, and she's not breathing.
Okay, sir, did you remove the water from the bathtub?
No, I haven't.
Okay, take the moment to do that now, okay?
My wife is in the bathtub. She's not breathing. The operator asks, "Did you drain the water from the bath?" "No." "Can you get her out?" "She's too slippery. Too heavy. I can't lift her." "Can you perform CPR?" "I don't know how." Now, here's the problem with that answer. Philip Grandine was a trained nurse, not just a nurse manager. He performed CPR as part of his job. He'd done it dozens of times. So why couldn't he save his wife? The operator stayed on the line with Philip for over 10 minutes. And during those 10 minutes, here's what Philip didn't do. He didn't drain the water from the bathtub. He didn't immediately remove Anna from the tub. He didn't start CPR for over 5 minutes. He didn't even check if she was breathing. Now, you might be thinking, people panic. Maybe he was in shock. Maybe he just froze. And that's fair. Except for one thing. While Anna was dying in that bathtub, Philip was calm enough to have been on the phone with someone else just minutes before. Someone who wasn't in the emergency services. Phone records would later show that Philip was on a 30-minute call with his mistress, Elaine. He hung up at 11:42 p.m. 3 minutes later, he called 911.
911, what's your emergency?
I just came home.
When paramedics arrived, they found Anna still in the bathtub, still submerged in water. No CPR had been performed. The water hadn't been drained. They rushed her to the hospital, but it was too late. Anna Karissa Grandine was pronounced dead on arrival. So was her unborn baby girl. Cause of death, drowning. But here's what made investigators immediately suspicious. There was vomit on Anna's pillow. And when they tested her blood, they found that same drug from 3 days earlier. Ativan, Lorazepam, a powerful sedative. And here's the question that would haunt this case. Was Anna already unconscious when she got in that tub, or did someone put her there? Philip told police he'd been out jogging that night, gone for about an hour, came home around 11:45 p.m. and found Anna in the tub. But investigators checked his story, and here's what they found. Cell tower records proved Philip never left the house. He was home the entire time. Phone records showed he was on a 30-minute call with Elaine that ended 3 minutes before the 911 call. And computer logs showed that someone had removed the internet filter, the one that blocked pornography and escort sites, 40 minutes before Anna died. So Philip wasn't jogging. He was home, on the phone with his mistress, on the computer accessing the sites he'd promised Anna he'd stay away from. And then his wife died. The police knew something was wrong. A trained nurse who couldn't perform CPR? A husband who wouldn't drain the water? A victim with a sedative in her system that she'd never been prescribed? It didn't add up, but they couldn't arrest Philip. Not yet. They needed more evidence. They needed to prove that Philip had intentionally drugged his wife, that he'd planned this. And that's when they found it. The smoking gun. The piece of evidence that would change everything. Philip's computer. And what investigators found on that computer? It was a digital roadmap to murder. Here's where Philip made his biggest mistake. He thought he was smart. He thought he'd covered his tracks. He thought no one would ever check his computer. But investigators did. And what they found was a timeline so damning, so precise, that it would eventually convict him twice. Because Philip's computer didn't just show what he was thinking. It showed exactly when he started planning Anna's murder. Let me walk you through the timeline. Because when you see these searches in order, the pattern is undeniable. October 10th, 2011, 2:47 a.m., 1 week before Anna died. Philip searches on his WikiAnswers account. Is 100 milligrams of Ativan fatal? Same day. If a person dies, if he drinks 100 milligrams of Ativan, same day. Searches for autopsy and toxicology reports. October 14th, 2011. The day Anna is hospitalized with Ativan in her system. At 4 a.m., 4 hours after Anna is discharged from the hospital, Philip searches for Lorazepam on Wikipedia. At the exact same time, he's also searching for escort services in Toronto. October 17th, 2011. The night Anna dies, 40 minutes before the 911 call, the computer filter is removed, the one that was supposed to block pornography and escort sites. Adult content sites are accessed, escort sites are accessed. And then, 3 minutes after hanging up with his mistress, Philip calls 911. This isn't curiosity. This isn't coincidence. This is premeditation. Now, Philip's defense team tried to argue that maybe Anna was the one doing these searches, that maybe she was planning to take her own life. But here's why that doesn't work. First, the searches were on Philip's WikiAnswers account, not Anna's. Second, at the exact same time these searches about Ativan were happening, Philip's pornography and escort sites were also being accessed. Third, Anna was deeply religious. Suicide was against her beliefs, and she was excited about her baby. She just bought baby clothes. She was planning the nursery. And fourth, most importantly, Anna had no access to Ativan. It was never prescribed to her. Her doctor confirmed that. So where did Philip get the Ativan? Let me show you. Remember, Philip worked as a nurse manager at O'Neill Nursing Home. His job? Distributing medications to elderly patients and disposing of excess medications. Police found a medication report from June 2011, 5 months before Anna died. It listed all the patients at the facility and their prescribed drugs. And guess what was on that list? Lorazepam, Ativan. Now, Philip's defense argued, no drugs were missing from the facility logs. There's no proof he stole anything. And technically, that's true. The logs showed no missing medications. But here's what prosecutors pointed out. If you're the person responsible for disposing of medications, and you take a small amount before disposal, who's going to notice? Who's going to check? Philip had access, he had knowledge, and he had motive. The perfect storm. And let's go back to that computer filter for a second, because this detail is crucial, and it's one of the most disturbing parts of this case. After Anna discovered Philip's addiction to pornography and escort sites, they installed a filter on the computer. Philip agreed to it. Pastor Stephen insisted on it. It was supposed to help Philip stay accountable. The filter stayed on for weeks. Philip couldn't access the sites he was addicted to, but on October 17th, the night Anna died, someone removed that filter. The defense actually argued that Anna removed it herself, that she was planning to take her own life and didn't want Philip to be burdened by the filter after she was gone. Let me repeat that. They argued that Anna removed the filter so her husband could watch pornography after she died. The prosecution called this creative fiction, and I think most people would agree, because here's what we know for sure. 40 minutes after that filter was removed, Anna was dead, and Philip was the only other person in the house. So the evidence was overwhelming. The computer searches proved Philip was researching how to kill someone with Ativan. The timeline proved he'd tested it on himself, then on Anna. And the phone records proved he was lying about where he was that night. On May 4th, 2012, 6 months after Anna's death, police arrested Philip Grandine and charged him with first-degree murder. The community was shocked. Philip's neighbor, Linda, told reporters, "It was hard to believe. They seemed so happy. But Anna's family? They'd known something was wrong from the moment she died. They told the police about the hospital visit. They told them about Anna's question, 'Did you give me a pill?' And now, finally, they were going to get their day in court. Finally, they were going to get justice. Or so they thought. Because what happened next, the legal battle that would span over a decade, would test their faith in the justice system in ways they never imagined. The trial began in 2014, 3 years after Anna's death. 3 years of waiting, 3 years of grief, 3 years of Anna's family wondering if they'd ever get justice. Philip pled not guilty. And what followed was a legal battle that would shock everyone involved. Because this case, it wouldn't end with one trial. It wouldn't even end with one conviction. This case would drag on for over a decade. And by the end, Philip would be convicted twice and released on bail twice. Let me walk you through what happened. The prosecution laid out their case. They showed the computer searches, the phone records, the cell tower data, the toxicology reports. They brought in witnesses. Anna's family testified about the hospital visit. Pastor Stephen testified about Philip's odd behavior during counseling. Philip's doctor testified that Philip had told him just 2 weeks before Anna died that he was depressed and that he wouldn't choose Anna as his wife if given the chance again. And Elaine, Philip's mistress, she testified too. She told the court about their affair, about the 300-plus text messages they exchanged on the day Anna died, about the 30-minute phone call that ended just 3 minutes before Philip called 911. She even testified that Philip had asked her if he should attend his wife's funeral. The evidence was overwhelming. The timeline was damning. But Philip's defense had a strategy. They argued that Anna had taken the drugs herself, that she was depressed about the affair, that she was self-medicating, that she either accidentally drowned or took her own life. The jury deliberated for 2 days, and here's what they decided. Philip was guilty, but not of first-degree murder. They convicted him of manslaughter. Why manslaughter instead of murder? Because the jury couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Philip intended to kill Anna. Maybe he just wanted to sedate her. Maybe he didn't mean for her to die. The judge sentenced Philip to 15 years in prison. And he said this, and I want you to hear these words. His behavior was diabolical and violent. It was planned and premeditated. This is as close to murder as a manslaughter case can get. Anna's family was devastated. They wanted a murder conviction. But at least Philip was going to prison. At least there was some justice. Or so they thought. Before Philip was sentenced, Anna's family gave victim impact statements, and I want to share some of what they said, because their words capture the devastation this case caused. Anna's mother, Maria, said, I vividly remember hearing the shocking news of Karissa's death. I felt the world had caved in on me. What did he do to try and save her? How long was she in the bathtub lifeless? Did she suffer long? What about the baby? Anna's father, Roman, was still in the Philippines. He'd tried to fly to Canada for Anna's funeral, but during the flight, he suffered 2 strokes. 2 strokes. He's been permanently traumatized. And a church deacon said something that I think captures how this case shattered an entire community. He said, "If a pastor can betray you, who can you trust?" Philip didn't just Anna. He destroyed a family. He shattered a community. He betrayed everyone who believed in him. 3 days after Philip was sentenced, his lawyers filed an appeal. And in 2015, the Ontario Court of Appeal sided with him. Why? Because the trial judge had made an error. During jury instructions, the judge introduced a new theory that hadn't been argued at trial, that even if Philip didn't give Anna the drugs, he could still be guilty if he knew she was intoxicated and failed to protect her. The defense never had a chance to respond to this theory. So the appeal court ruled the trial was unfair. Philip's conviction was overturned, and he was released on bail again. Anna's mother said, "The reopening of my daughter's case continues to make the wound of losing her so palpable and raw again and again." The second trial didn't happen until 2019, 8 years after Anna's death. This time, the prosecution couldn't argue that Philip intended to kill Anna. They could only argue that he was responsible for her death. The jury convicted him again. Manslaughter, 15 years. But Philip appealed again, and he was released on bail again. For years, Philip walked free while Anna's family waited for justice. I know what you're thinking. How is this justice? How can a man be convicted twice and still walk free for years? And I get it. It's frustrating. It's infuriating. Here's the reality. The Canadian legal system gives defendants the right to appeal, and sometimes those appeals succeed. Sometimes judges make errors. Sometimes technicalities matter more than truth. Does that make it right? That's for you to decide. But for Anna's family, it felt like the system was protecting Philip instead of honoring Anna's memory. Anna's sister said, "How are we supposed to trust in any system that gives a convicted murderer this much power?" And a church leader said, "It's a very sad day for the family. They're treating the victim like the criminal, and the criminal like a victim." Finally, in 2022, more than a decade after Anna's death, the Ontario Court of Appeal rejected Philip's second appeal. They ruled, Philip had a duty to protect Anna. He knew she was intoxicated from the hospital visit. He saw how those drugs affected her, and he failed that duty. As her husband, as a nurse, as a human being, the legal battle was over. After 2 trials, 2 convictions, and multiple appeals, Philip Grandine was finally going to prison. But for Anna's family, the damage was done. They'd spent over a decade reliving her death, over a decade watching her killer walk free, over a decade waiting for justice. So let me ask you, was justice served, or did Philip get away with murder by calling it manslaughter? Before we answer that, I want to talk about what this case teaches us about trust, about forgiveness, about the masks people wear, and about the warning signs we should never ignore. Anna Karissa Grandine was 29 years old when she died. She was 20 weeks pregnant with a baby girl she called Jelly Bean. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a woman of deep faith who believed in second chances. She forgave her husband when she discovered his affair. She stood by him through counseling. She trusted him, even when her own body was telling her something was wrong. And that trust cost her everything. So, what can we learn from Anna's story? What warning signs should we never ignore? And how do we protect ourselves and the people we love? Anna's mother visits her grave every week. She sings hymns to a granddaughter she never got to meet. A granddaughter who would be 13 years old now, a teenager, with her whole life ahead of her. But she never got that chance because Philip Grandine took it away. So let me ask you, do you think justice was served in this case? Philip was convicted of manslaughter, not murder. He got 15 years, not life. He'll be eligible for parole after serving a portion of his sentence. Meanwhile, Anna and her daughter are gone forever. Was that justice? Or did Philip get away with murder by calling it manslaughter? I want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and tell me, do you think Philip intended to kill Anna? Should he have been convicted of murder instead of manslaughter? And what do you think about the legal system allowing him to walk free for years? If this case affected you, please consider supporting organizations that help victims of domestic violence. I've linked some resources in the description. And if you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please reach out for help. You deserve better. Thank you for watching. And thank you for remembering Anna Karissa with me today. Her life mattered. Her daughter's life mattered. And their story deserves to be told. If you want to see more cases like this, cases that need attention, cases that demand justice, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. I cover true crime cases every week, and I'd love to have you here. I'll see you in the next one.